Hello and welcome back to Euro Football Daily, where we're doing a very special Champions League preview of some massive quarter-final ties, the second leg of which we will be seeing in just a few hours' time. We'll be looking at Chelsea versus Real Madrid, and we'll also be looking at Napoli versus Milan as the partner pay look to overturn that 1-0 first leg deficit. Make sure you join the conversation by following the link pinned in the chat, guys. We want to have this as interactive as possible. We're going to talk some form. We're going to talk some previous results. We're going to look at some predicted lineups. We're going to do some predictions. It's going to be one hell of a show, so strap yourselves in. And I'm delighted to say I'll be joined by numerous members of the Football Daily team and some very special experts too. First of all, guys, we're going to be talking about Chelsea versus Real Madrid at Stamford Bridge tonight. Chelsea are looking to overturn a 2-0 first leg deficit after conceding goals from Karim Benzema and Marco Asensio in that first leg. Frank Lampard already under massive pressure so early in his tenure. So, first of all, let's get our first guest in. Let's see who we have lined up for you guys today from Football Daily. It is Mr. Henry Hill. Henry Hill, welcome to the preview. First of all, how are you doing? And how excited are you to see how Chelsea do tonight against Real Madrid?
Thank you very much for having me on. Yeah, I am excited tonight. I'm slightly concerned by their lineup. Obviously, we've seen Koulibaly, he's out. I thought he was actually really good in the first leg at the Bernabeu. So Chalobah's coming in, and then Cucurella, who got a lot of stick after the first leg for his performances, arguably his error that led to Chilwell having to be sent off. So yeah, I just can see that Real Madrid front line probing that Chelsea back line, and maybe Vinicius and Rodrigo switching around just to see where they can maybe break in. So I am concerned for that Chelsea team, but I'm excited to see Mudryk in the starting lineup. Hopefully he can try and make an impression there. So yeah, they've got to go for it. And I think that's the best thing about this game is Chelsea really have to try and make something happen here. They're low in form, but really this is a free hit for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they are up against it, obviously, against the 14-time champions. Real Madrid have won 9 of their last 11 knockout games, including all of their last 5. As I say, they are the masters of overturning deficits if they ever go behind in games. In this one, they're obviously ahead, and they are huge favourites to progress to another semi-final. They obviously beat Chelsea last year. They then beat Man City, PSG, and went all the way in that final, beating Liverpool as well. Let's welcome another contributor to the stream. Let's bring in Michael McCubbin, EFD's finest. Hey, Mikey, how are you doing, first of all? And Real Madrid tonight, is this just a foregone conclusion? Can you see any nerves from them?
I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion, but they are obviously in such a strong position from that first leg. And they are, when you look at both teams' form this season, they are the much better team. Let's face it. Chelsea are, by most accounts, the 11th best team in England. Real Madrid are easily the second best team in Spain, and probably when you look at kind of performances on the whole over the course of the season, are better value, I think, than the points gap between them and Barcelona would suggest. So, yeah, I think Real Madrid fans should be very confident going into this, but I do think their first half performance will still be very important in this tie. I think if Chelsea can get a goal back within the first 20, 30 minutes, then I think that home advantage could start to tell, and the experience within that Madrid side should be able to see this game out. But, they can't treat this as a game they've already won. 2-0 is a very strong scoreline to go into it with, but it's not, it's not like that Man City advantage that they have over Bayern. That extra goal at the Bernabeu, I think, would have been really handy for them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, actually. They're actually looking to become the first side ever in Champions League history to win 2 games away at Stamford Bridge. They obviously won there 3-1 last year, with Karim Benzema coming up clutch once again with a hat-trick during that ridiculous tear that he went on in the back end of 21-22 that ultimately earned him the Ballon d'Or and Real Madrid their 14th title, as I said. Let's have a look at some of the lineups for tonight. Incredibly exciting to see how it ends up going. I mean, Henry, are there any massive surprises from the Chelsea lineup?
Yeah, as I said, I think Cucurella had a really poor first game there. It's interesting to see him put his confidence in Conor Gallagher. I think he's just looking for a lot of energy in the midfield in the midfield, but that's a huge game for him. A sort of a big step up, certainly in the context of how his season has gone. But we did see him get that goal at the weekend, so maybe he's got a bit of confidence there. But yeah, it's cautious again. The key is ultimately getting James into the game. If they can get Reece James into this game, getting down the right-hand side and find a way to sort of cover him behind him so he doesn't get exposed by Vinicius, then I think they do have a chance, because really that's where their creativity is coming from in this match. Enzo too in the midfield. I thought he was quite impressive in the first leg too. So yeah, I think it's quite a reserved team in many ways, but I think that's maybe sensible just to suss out, try and get an early goal and try and just get a foothold in this match. That's the most important thing for Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. They did have some chances in the first 20 minutes in the Bernabeu, weren't able to take them. Let's bring on a man who's very familiar with how, dangerous Real Madrid can be at this stage of the competition. Has Karim, Real Madrid fan from Football Daily. Has, welcome to the preview. Let's talk about Real Madrid's lineup tonight. Any surprises from a Real Madrid's fan perspective?
Not at all, really. I mean, it's pretty much the strongest lineup that we can put out, given the fact that we haven't got an actual left back in the squad. So Camavinga is once again filling in, but no surprises there at all. If anything, I'm quite happy with the fact that he's given Rodrigo the nod in this game as well, given that he's had quite a strong season this year so far as well. Underrated to some degree, if anything.
I like it. And let's talk a little bit about Aurelien Tchouameni, your big money signing from Monaco in the summer. He's been in and out of the side, has sort of lost his starting position recently. What's been going on with him?
Suffered that injury not long after the World Cup break and sort of didn't quite get the rhythm back again after that since. I think Carlos sticking to the tried and tested formula of Kroos and Modric, obviously forming 2 of the 3, and then having Fede Valverde in there. I mean, it's not the worst choices in the world, let's be honest. But it's one of those. I think it's hard to say, really. I mean, Kroos is effective in that role as sort of the defensive midfielder in a way, but I would like to see Tchouameni getting some more minutes in there, given he's naturally fit for that position. But again, you can't argue with Kroos and Modric, can you? All timers in their positions, pretty much. It's really hard to displace those two.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's definitely got time on his side, as he's still a youngster, of course. And Toni Kroos looking to extend his contract, I believe, for another year, which is a good move. Right, we are bringing in Sam Abasaki, who is actually going to tonight's game at Stamford Bridge, Mr. Chelsea himself. Sam Abasaki, welcome to the stream. Hopefully you connect in a second. Oba, how are you doing? Where are you at right now? And in the building?
You're on the underground.
I am waiting for my train at Osterley to go to Stamford Bridge because we're gonna win. Hash is wearing these Real Madrid shirt. You're looking a bit nervous because I know you know what happens at Stamford Bridge. You know what happens at Stamford Bridge in the Champions League. I'm saying all this. I don't know what to expect.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, Oba, what have been your thoughts of Lampard's brief tenure the second time round so far? Have you seen any green shoots of recovery? What can Chelsea fans cling to?
I think when he first came in, it was more of the fact that, we just didn't want to keep it the way it was. It has been all season. I don't think it necessarily worked under Graham Potter. I think the task seemed a little bit too big for him. And I think Lampard, obviously, yes, he was sacked by Everton, but at the same time, he's a Chelsea legend. His first tenure at Chelsea wasn't terrible. When, the second season he had, it was arguable that he deserved a little bit of an opportunity to, see out that tough period. Now he's come into an even tougher period. But obviously he's known at the club, he's respected at the club. And I think that that's what is needed, to be honest, like just a presence that people can feel familiar with, that they know, yes, the season's over in terms of like finishing in a Champions League spot or ultimately winning the Champions League. We've given ourselves a lot to do, but with him, I feel like there's a sense of familiarity, and I think that that's what the fans need at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Worked with so many of that squad beforehand. Just a reminder, guys, if you guys want to get involved with the conversation with our esteemed panelists, follow the link pinned in the chat and you can ask your questions for this show. We're going to try and make it as interactive as possible. Let's go to a main player to watch in this game. Has Karim, Vinicius Jr. has to be right up there as a one to watch. He's had another magnificent season.
Yeah, again, he's really kicked on since having that breakout last year. 21 goals and 16 assists in all competitions, I think, this year, something along those lines. right up there amongst, if not the best winger in the world right now. And he did have a great time in the previous game. Match high for dribbles, chances created, and stuff like that. So I'm expecting him to be the difference for Chelsea. Not Chelsea, sorry, for Real Madrid even in this game.
Yeah, 100%. He did say prior to, I think it was after the ties last year, that Reece James was his toughest opponent that he's ever faced. And I think Reece James kind of repaid the favour. We saw in the first leg, it felt like Vinicius Jr. very much had the better of that one-on-one matchup. Was that something you felt? And do you think he can replicate that again tonight?
I think it was definitely his best performance against Reece James across the 3 games they played against each other now. So yeah, definitely, I do think that this is toughest opponent, and it's definitely the one he struggles the most against, other than say Ronald Araujo with Barcelona. But I definitely say Vinicius got the better of of that battle in the Bernabeu. So it'd be interesting to see if he can do it again on away territory.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he has really turned it on in the Champions League. Back end of last year, he was absolutely magnificent as well. I believe we're going to get Zach Jalab, another Mr. Chelsea, into the chat in just a second. Again,
Yes.
he's working at
I can't hear you guys, unfortunately. I hope you are well. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Well, I will just give you then a lowdown of where I am right now. I'm not too sure. I'm sorry, I've been a bit busy, so I've not been able to tune in, unfortunately. However, if you can see, I'm currently in the press area, obviously,
there you are.
the Champions League semi-final against Real Madrid. How am I feeling at the moment? Nervous. However, I feel I kind of probably admitted defeat in the first leg, so anything now is going to be a plus. Obviously, the sides are supposedly been leaked; they've been released. Looks like Chalobah could possibly be in the side as well, which is interesting.
Yes,
A 3 at the back, maybe 2. I'm a little bit disappointed. I feel like Mudryk could have been a big player here. I feel like Mudryk was somebody who caused him so many issues last time. And obviously with Danny Carvajal, I'm not sure whether you've covered it or not already, was probably the targeting point. It was probably the area to go for. Maybe they're trying to see whether they can get in at half-time, 0-0, and go for everything in the second half. But look, this is a game that's quite big for Chelsea. Like, the season in terms of the Premier League obviously hasn't gone anywhere near the way they would have expected. They want the Champions League to be something that they can try and use, obviously, to at least galvanise the fans. I mean, I saw the atmosphere outside the bridge just before this, when the buses were coming in. And to be fair, the fans were really, really good. They were trying to make something out of quite maybe a dire situation. So it's going to be interesting. Maybe they've practiced something, maybe they've trained something on the training ground that we're not quite privy to or understand. The big worry is Vinny Jr. It's Vinny Jr. He's somebody that caused us so many issues last time. Could quite possibly cause us a lot of issues today as well. He really is in his own at the moment, and yeah, I'm slightly worried about that. I, though, unfortunately, will probably have to make a move in a little bit. I'm just seeing who's waving at me. I've still got a couple of minutes anyway right now. However, yeah, no, Vinny Jr. is my biggest worry. There we go. I'd also say Benzema is somebody who we got to be worried about. And you know what? Like, depending if he features again, is Antonio Rudiger. Like, that's a reception that I'm really interested to see how he'll get on at the bridge. Who knows whether there's somebody, but like, for someone like him, you know what? He's a player that just like thrives in that kind of scenario. I'm now getting waved because I'm in the way of a lot of people. Hope you guys like my smart,
Very
casual
smart,
attire.
Very smart.
And I will love you and leave you. Good luck, and well, good luck to Chelsea. No luck to you, Hassan. Sorry, mate.
Lovely stuff there from Zach Jalab. Couldn't hear us, but professional as ever, looking so smart in his blazer. What a consummate pro. That was magnificent to see. I believe we can get Oba back there. Oba, Zach mentioned Mykhailo Mudryk, and we'll try and get some of his stats on screen there. Oba, what have you made of Mudryk? And have you been surprised that Chelsea haven't used him as much in the Champions League, given that he looks so dangerous in the competition with Shakhtar?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think I thought that this was going to be his game. I think he actually looked quite good against Brighton. Obviously, that game didn't go to plan for Chelsea, but I think he was actually, as an individual, he seemed freer. I feel like Lampard just told him, go and express yourself and go and do what you can do against that team. And I thought, okay, this is him setting him up for the Real Madrid game, because we've seen a few highlights on social media and wherever of what he's done in the Champions League before. And the fact that he's not playing, I agree with that to a certain extent. Maybe Lampard's trying to be cautious for the first half because maybe that Real Madrid couldn't come out and start firing. They're very used to doing that in the Champions League. You never really know what to expect when you're playing against them. So I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I'm hoping at half time, if we're not winning, then they can bring Mudryk and Mount on, because I think that those two players especially are key to winning the game against Real Madrid.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that you bring up Mason Mount there. I mean, Henry, we know that his future is really uncertain. He's out of contract in 2024. It feels like Chelsea might cash in this summer because he's not willing to extend his deal, or that's the reports we're getting. Do you think it would be a mistake from Chelsea to get rid of Mason Mount this summer, or is it something that you have to do given the fact he'll leave for free in 2024?
It's a difficult one because we heard what the guys have been saying about Lampard being an air of familiarity around the club. Mount is a blue in many ways, isn't he? He's one of the shining lights of their academy. I think he is, for a lot of the fans at the moment, a good memory of the better years, as it were, and what has been a difficult campaign. We've just seen Chilwell extend his deal a little bit longer. Reece James is obviously tied down for longer too. I do think that clearly what's going on off the pitch is affecting him this season. He's been injured as well. He's had some issues. We saw Lampard talk about how he's always had a great relationship with Mount and he wants to try and get the best out of him too. So yeah, I do think it would be a mistake to let Mount go. I think whoever gets him, should it end at a point of him leaving the club, whoever gets him will have a brilliant sort of top-level Premier League player made on their hands. I mean, what he's done, let's not forget, he was Chelsea Player of the Year 2 seasons in a row. I mean, some of his numbers really are always going to be underappreciated. He's quite divisive, I've seen, to a lot of Football Daily fans, but I personally absolutely adore Mason Mount. The energy he brings, the selflessness, and actually the attacking numbers are pretty impressive when you can get him going. So I think getting Mount back on side will be such an asset to Chelsea, and if that means extending his contract, giving him what he wants, giving him the pay parity of some of the top earners that he deserves, considering how little he's been earning at the club relative to a lot of the new signings, etc. I think Mount does deserve that, and I think we'll see a great player once more if they sort of buckle and reach a conclusion where he gets the deal that he wants and stays at the club.
Yeah, well, I mean, 100%. I think it would personally be a massive error. But guys, we want to hear your opinion. We put a poll in the chat. Get answering yes or no. Should Chelsea keep Mount, given the scenario? I think everyone agrees that he's a top player, but given the fact he can leave for free in 2024. I mean, Oba, give us a sense of what it would mean for Chelsea fans if Mount was to leave this summer.
It'll be terrible. I think it'll be terrible. I think he, like Henry said, he epitomizes everything that Chelsea has been, the success Chelsea has had in the last few years. I think he is, like, when you think of Chelsea, you think of Mason Mount, and to even have the idea of him in another team's colours actually like making me a little bit sick, because he's one of those players that gives 100%. You know, when you can look at a player on the pitch, and regardless of how the game's going, you look at one player and you say, you know what, at least he's given his all, and he's always been that player. For some reason, he's always been like some Chelsea fans haven't appreciated what he's done for the club. But when you look in comparison to the players that have got new contracts, like, you know, Ben Chilwell or Reece James, I'd say he's been more consistent than all of those players, and most of the players that are currently getting new contracts or in that conversation. So yeah, it would really be upsetting for him to see him leave Chelsea. Hopefully they're sorting it out, and hopefully it's a thing of, you know, having to sort out the situation with fair play and the fact that we signed so many players and the fact that we're going to have to release a few players in the summer. Hopefully they're just waiting to sort that situation out and can deal with it, because if Mason Mount leaves Chelsea, I think that would be one of the biggest mistakes that Chelsea has made or can make.
Yeah, even this year, I mean, he scored in the San Siro. I mean, he was a crucial player under Lampard, as we said, in his first spell under Tuchel. Yes, it didn't quite work out under Potter, but this is a season where you've signed 16 players for over £500 million. Like, it's been a mishmash. No one's quite sure what your preferred lineup is, what your preferred formation is. And it just feels like he's been a little bit of a victim of that. We are going to move on to the Napoli versus Milan game in just a few minutes. But first of all, I want to get some predictions. Haas, as the representative of Real Madrid, how many goals do you think Real are going to score tonight at Stamford Bridge?
I think it will be a fairly conservative score, so I would probably 2. I think they'll go 2-0 and then just stick it at that. I don't think it'll be a goal fest like last year. I think it will be a fairly conservative score. I don't think it's going to go mental on the goal fest. I don't think they will. Safe 2-0.
Fair enough. 2-0. And let's just quickly, before we move on to the next game, it looks like Real Madrid are going to be playing Man City in the semi-finals. What do you think about that potential matchup?
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Erling Haaland's obviously on an absolute scoring streak for the ages at the moment. So yeah, I mean, last year was a different matter considering the fact they didn't have that focal point in the attack, but now they have him. That completely changes the dynamic of that tie altogether. So yeah, don't fancy that one particularly.
Absolutely, and maybe a sign of things to come as well. He's been flirting with Real Madrid even since joining Man City, or at least his agent and his team have. So we'll see how that one materializes in the near future. But before you get your train and you'll inevitably lose signal, what is the scoreline going to be tonight? Give some hope to our Chelsea fans that are watching.
It's gonna be 2-0. It's gonna go to extra time, and then we're gonna win on pens. And Courtois is going to be crying in Stamford Bridge. That is what is going to happen.
I love it, Oba. Thank you so much for joining our preview tonight. Enjoy the game. And Has Kareem, thank you so much for coming in and giving your expert opinion on Real Madrid. Best of luck to you both. We'll see who ends up with egg on their face at 90 minutes, maybe 120. See you guys later. Right, guys. Henry and McCubb. I mean, we heard there pretty strong words from Oba.
Yeah.
Convinced that they're going to go to extra time and penalties. McCubbs, do you share that optimism?
Oba is the eternal optimist, isn't he? I do love it. Like I said earlier, I think Lampard may have made a bit of a mistake with this lineup. To be honest, I think when you're 2-0 down from the Bernabeu, you're back at Stamford Bridge. You're Frank Lampard, a club legend. Arguably probably the best player in the club's history. You've got the crowd completely behind you. I think you kind of have to go for it, because if Real Madrid are going to go for it in that first half, then they're going to leave gaps. We talked about Danny Carvajal. Why isn't someone like Joao Felix or even Mason Mount? Obviously, Mudryk is the obvious choice there. But why isn't that forward line more stacked? I kind of get the Gallagher thing, because he can press the centre-backs, but at the same time, those two centre-backs, Eder Militao and David Alaba, are pretty good ball players, especially Alaba, one of the best, most expansive centre-backs of his generation, or one of the best all-round, footballers really of his generation. So I kind of feel like, that the attacking lineup doesn't make an awful lot of sense. I don't think when you're at home in a quarter-final that you need to win, that going conservative in the first half makes that much sense. If anything, it's Real Madrid who should be doing that, inviting a little bit of pressure, and seeing that out till half time. We know that Real Madrid, especially in these ties, really come alive in the second half. All it really takes is 10-15 minutes, especially under Carlo Ancelotti with this Real Madrid side. It's just kind of 10-15 minutes of complete world-class play, and they can win games like that. Chelsea need to really go into half time ahead, I think, to have any chance of going through in this tie. So, I do feel like Lampard has potentially made a mistake with that lineup in that sense.
There we have it. Lampard's potentially made a mistake, according to Michael McCubbin. This is their final chance of silverware, as unlikely as it seems this season, of course. They drew Man City in the EFL Cup and the FA Cup, and now they've got Real Madrid in the quarter, so it doesn't get much easier, of course, and they've got a 2-0 first leg deficit to turn over as well. But let's park that game at Stamford Bridge tonight. Let's turn our attention to the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium, where Napoli take on Milan. They are 1-0 down from the first leg. Ismail Benacer's goal proving the difference after Brahim Diaz with an excellent assist. And I'm delighted to say that we've got the Euro expert joining our preview. Hello, Alex. Welcome, Alex. What did you make of the first leg before we get into tonight's game? Do you think Milan were slightly lucky?
I did think they were slightly lucky, and that was, lucky's a bit harsh. Really, they relied on the magnificent play of Mike Maignan. See, I think XG in this game was even, about 1.3 to Napoli, 1.2 to Milan. And I think that's kind of a false representation of the game. Napoli did take a lot of long shots, but these were shots from Zielinski, Lobotka, Kvaratskhelia, going right into the top corner. And Maignan was there every single time, palming them away. I mean, for the stats numbers, he has overperformed expected goals every season he has played in his career. And he really was the difference in that last game. Brahim Diaz obviously had a moment of magic driving Milan up the pitch. But I think had Milan not had Maignan fit for this game, they may have not got away with the clean sheet over at San Siro.
Yeah, 100%. Maignan being such a big absence when he's been not on the pitch this season. They would not be competing to get into that top 4 in the league, in my opinion, if he'd been fit all season. Let's talk about the lineups, though. Henry Hill, let's start with Napoli. They are the team under pressure. No Kim Min-jae, but Victor Osimhen back in the side. That's a huge boost, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's reaching cult status in the club. I think just the energy that will bring to the stadium, him just being on the pitch again, is going to be massive for them. But yeah, the lineup's interesting because Napoli haven't rotated that team much. It's really been they've had sort of a main starting 11 that we've seen sort of week in, week out. We haven't seen Raspadori get many minutes, Politano, etc., and Lozano. They've kind of all had to share moments when they can get on the pitch. And actually, Juan Jesus coming in at centre-half, he's started 8 Serie A games this season. He's rarely used as a sub. Alternatively, Ndombele always used as a sub. I think they rank 16th and 17th for minutes in the Napoli squad in Serie A this season. These are big games for these two to come in for and try and make an impact, I think. Jesus has always kind of been this player over the last few years, but Ndombele, there's a lot of weight on his shoulders to be the guy to sort of help progress that ball into the forward line. But hey, now Kvaratskhelia can get back on sort of his favourite position, link up with his favourite player. That's the link up I'm really excited to see once more, because that is really going to be the difference if they're going to overturn against this AC Milan side, who've had their number the last 2 times, let's not forget.
Yeah, 100%. Not just that victory in the San Siro, but beating them 4-0 in the league earlier this month, of course, with Rafa Leao and Alexis Salamakers in particular absolutely lethal. McCubs, let's talk about the Milan lineup. What is that the sort of lineup that makes you think that they can hold on to this 1-0 lead?
I mean, they certainly are capable of doing so. I mean, it's not a particularly different lineup. It is their strongest lineup, isn't it? And that back line has played together so much over the last 2-3 years, hasn't it? I mean, the pairing of Kjaer and Tomori is very solid. Calabria is, one of the best defensive right backs in Italy. Teo Hernandez obviously offers the attacking threat there. So yeah, I think they will go into this game. With confidence. I think 1-0 was as good as they could have hoped for in that first leg. Like Alex was saying, Maignan was on a brilliant form. I think, that both the bans for Kim Min-jae and Anguissa, both pretty harsh. Anguissa's first yellow was harsh, and then the second yellow came after a passage of play in which I think Tonali was quite lucky not to have a foul given against him before he was taken down. So and obviously Kim Min-jae chatting back to the ref, kind of out of frustration, just a bit of an unfortunate kind of situation. I think Milan would have absolutely taken a 1-0 lead going into the second leg. I think, the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium is going to be, as rocking as it's ever been. This might be the biggest game they've hosted in over 30 years, let's be honest. So it's going to be really, really tough for them. But this Milan team under Pioli have been masters at, inviting pressure on, at, over-relying on Maignan at times, for sure. But in terms of defending set pieces, in terms of their defensive structure overall, having players like Tonali, who is great going, defensively and going forwards, having someone like Benacer, who was a really experienced deep-lying midfielder at this point, and having the leadership of players like Kjaer, everyone in that back line, Calabria is the club captain, but all of those players in that back line have great leadership qualities. I think Pioli has a great lineup on his hands tonight.
He absolutely does. It's going to be a mouth-watering clash. Alex, let's talk about their previous encounters. In particular, I want to get your thoughts on that 4-0 win in the league at the Diego Armando Maradona earlier this month. Do you put that down to, Napoli being so far ahead in the league, they took their foot off the gas, or do you think Milan and Pioli actually have something over Spalletti's side?
I do think they have something over Spalletti's side, and that is pace in transition. I rewatched that game a couple of weeks ago because I only caught the highlights before. And if you catch the highlights, you can see every goal is coming on counter-attacks. See, the thing with Napoli is, as great as they are in attack, they're usually really good in defence, both by pressing high, but also with their high line. With Jesus is quite quick, and Min-jae, who's absolutely rapid, Rui and Lozano as well. It means they're able to be a bit like Manchester City. They can happily play really high and leave that spacing behind and trust themselves to catch up with any attackers or long balls. Milan punished them for this. Rafael Leao was so deadly in this game, especially going down that left-hand side of the pitch. And sure, it was a bit of an exaggerated scoreline. Napoli had their chances in this. I think and Milan really took their own, but it was fair. And so was there are other games as well where Napoli have lost to Milan. And there was another one last year as well in Serie A. But I might be bringing it up as well. I think the biggest thing for Napoli going into this game, though, because they lost 4-0 at home before, I think having Osimhen back might be your next talking point. For me, that's the biggest game changer, especially compared to what they were like at the weekend without him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been absolutely devastating. We saw even off the bench against Verona at the weekend where they actually could only manage a 0-0 draw. But even in his 17 minutes, he looked so lively. It was like that, absence hadn't really affected him whatsoever. And I think Napoli are aiming to avoid not scoring in their first, in 3 games in a row, for something like 20 years. It has been a barren run by their standards. Henry, let's talk a little bit more on Victor Osimhen. He's obviously linked with a load of clubs this summer. He'll be wanting to make a statement tonight in a Champions League second leg, of course, having missed that first leg.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's buying into the culture of the club. He's been there for a while now, so he knows he'll be fully invested in the movement and of getting Napoli to this historic status that they're at, and cult status. I mean, there's so many articles at the moment about how the clouds will fall, the sky will fall if Napoli continues to do well in this competition, win Serie A, which looks a bit more sewn up. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, this European adventure is very exciting for them. He's going to be so up for this. He will have realised his importance even more in the past few games. As Alex kind of pointed out, they've looked pretty toothless without him in attack, and he's going to get a big move anyway. I think if he wants it, he's going to have their pick of number of clubs. We've heard Bayern Munich, a lot of talk, maybe Manchester United. Although I believe Alex doesn't fancy him for Manchester United tactically, but he's going to get that big move anyway. But this is all part of his legacy. And if you can create a legacy at a club like Napoli, then I think you really are going to exist in the history books for a long time. So it's a very exciting opportunity for him tonight, and he'll be up for it. If they can get that early goal, I watched them against Juventus when they sort of blitzed them this season, and also the game against Liverpool where they blitzed them at home as well. Once they get into a rhythm, once they get going, and once their passing works in midfield, I appreciate Ongisa isn't there, and he is a huge factor towards that. But once they get into their rhythm, they are pretty formidable. I think Guardiola said they're the best team in the world almost this season when they're in full flow. And Osimhen and his presence, he is central to that. So yeah, I can definitely see him popping up some goals tonight.
Absolutely. I have the bit between his teeth. I mean, we can't have a teaser like that about your content, Alex, without hearing where you think he fits best.
Oh, thank you, Henry, for the little plug, though. Yes. Well, the reason I didn't think Osimhen works for Manchester United is because Manchester United striker, usually under Ten Hag, while they're the least involved in build-up play, they are required to kind of drop in and link play. And Osimhen, for Napoli, unlike the rest of the team where there's a lot of passing and moving, lots of triangles being formed over the pitch, Osimhen's averaging something like, I think, less than 10 passes per 90, I believe. It's something outrageous. And it's just because he's hanging on that last line, racing in behind, or getting into the box for his 3-meter leaps to get headers in. There's also a reason why as well, what I mentioned before, Napoli have looked toothless without him, as Henry mentioned, is because they've been playing Raspadori, but trying to get him to play in the same way, instead of trying to get him to play deep, which is what he did at Sassuolo. Without Osimhen, Spalletti is RC's replacement to essentially repeat the same trick. And you can't really do that because Osimhen is so unique. And just off the top of my head, with the clubs you suggest he could go to, Manchester United, as I said, I don't think he fits very well for their build-up. I'd prefer someone like Ivan Toney, whatever happens there. I think that would be a good move. I don't want to go to Chelsea because they have about 3,000 players. I think Bayern Munich is about probably the best option for me, because it's kind of like what Lewandowski did. He didn't have to be super involved in build-up. He could just focus on being in and around the box, a bit like Haaland for City, and finishing chances, and which is what Osimhen is best at.
Yeah, that's a good shout, I believe, because now with Nagelsmann having departed, whose main issue with Lewandowski last year was that he was less inclined to get involved in build-up and drop deep. Tuchel, more of a point man. It didn't quite work when he had Lukaku at Chelsea, but I can see that fit Osimhen and Bayern Munich working really, really effectively. And it would also be quite satisfying as Euro Football Daily and, a team that tries to boost up European football for him not to just take a Premier League move, particularly to a club like Chelsea, who aren't probably going to even finish in the top 10 this season. So I'm all behind his move to Bayern Munich myself. Okay, guys, let's have some predictions. McCubs, what do you see happening in this game?
I think this could be a classic. Not necessarily a high-scoring classic, but I think it could tactically be an incredibly interesting game. The stadium is going to be bouncing. I can see this going to extra time, and thank God for the end of away goals, because I think it might be something like 2-1 to Napoli, and then who knows what will happen after extra time. I'll say that Napoli win it after extra time. It's written in the stars, surely. But Milan, I think Milan will probably also play the game of their lives, so it's going to be very, very tight.
Yeah, 100%. Competing to make their first semi-final since 2006-07. That's Milan. Napoli never even played a Champions League quarter-final. Worth remembering. So never played a Champions League semi-final, of course, as well. Milan with a far bigger and greater, Champions League European Cup history. So it all comes down to tonight. Henry, do you think that experience is going to help Milan over the line, or do you think Napoli will do it? And what's your score prediction?
I mean, many of their players haven't featured in big games like this. But I agree, this is also a huge game for them as well. I think, obviously, we've been talking about Napoli. I can't underestimate how much this will mean to the Milan supporters too. I think Fikayo Tomori's Player Tribune article, where he talked about the atmosphere after they won that Serie A title, sort of really showed what AC means to the people of Milan. So yeah, this is massive for them too. I just because I'm watching this in the office, I hope it doesn't go to extra time. That'd be a real shame. But I'm with McCubbin. I think it's gonna be a classic. I'm gonna go for a 3-1 victory to Napoli.
3-1 victory. And finally, Alex, your score prediction. Then we will complete, our Champions League bracket as well, going all the way through to the final. Quickly, Alex, though, your score prediction for this one.
I will go 2-1 Napoli. I feel a bit bad underplaying Milan, lower Livingston on time. I'll pay respects to them. So many great players. Teo Hernandez for me, best left back in Europe. But I'm backing Napoli to get past them, despite what history suggests. I'll go 2-1 Napoli, but they won't get past my boys Inter in the semi-final.
Oh, there we have it. An early prediction. Well, speaking of the semi-finals, let's get up the brackets. So we obviously know the results from the quarterfinals first legs. I'm going to give you each one of the quarterfinals, and then we'll do the semi-finals and final. So filling them in, Henry, why don't you start with Real Madrid versus Chelsea? What do you think the second leg's going to be?
Real Madrid are too good away from home. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory again.
2-0 victory, a 4-0 drubbing for Chelsea. Okay, Real Madrid are through. McCubbs, what are we thinking? Man City versus Bayern tomorrow?
Another easy one, yeah. I think I could see Bayern winning it, actually, maybe 2-1. City taking their foot off the gas, but Bayern just don't have enough, I don't think, to overturn that 3-0 deficit.
Love it. 2-1 it is. Okay. Alex, we heard your prediction. Can we just have it quickly again for Milan versus Napoli?
It's a 2-1 at first. I realised that would take us to 2-2. So we'll go 3-1. Make sure. Be more solid.
3-1 after extra time.
3-1.
Yes.
Okay. Benfica versus Inter at the San Siro tomorrow. Two massive ties tonight's at in Naples. Sorry, I'm losing myself for a second. Right, Inter Milan versus Benfica. I think they just get the job done. I think it might be 1-1. Not a particularly entertaining side at the moment, Inter. Right, let's get into the semi-finals. McCubbs, the first leg of Real Madrid versus Man City. What do you think?
First leg, I don't know where. I guess it will be at the Bernabeu, won't it? If this is,
I think it's at the Bernabeu. Yeah.
I think if it's at the Bernabeu, I think it could be quite cagey. I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. Okay, leaving it all to play at the Etihad. Henry, do Man City get over the line and reach their second Champions League final?
Yeah, I do think so. I think it will be 2-1. I think it'll be nervy. Could be a classic 2-1.
2-1. Thrilling. Man City are in the final. Okay. Euro expert Alex Barker. First leg of Napoli versus Inter.
We'll go 1-0 Inter.
Well,
You're
we needed
laughing.
someone-
Don't doubt Inzaghi in knockout competitions. 2 Coppa Italians. He
I'm
goes
all
far.
for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I've seen a few Serie A experts back it. I'm all for it. I appreciate the chaos you are creating. Do I think Inter make a Champions League final? I just can't back it at the moment. They're so inconsistent in Serie A in particular. I'm going 2-0 to Napoli at the San Siro.
Well, Dougie, when I come to this live stream after
Napoli
Inter
makes
dispatch
the
of Napoli, I will clip you.
I like it. Okay, Euro expert, as you are our special guest on this preview, we'll allow you to pick the final scoreline of the final.
Ooh, I'll go with my heart over my brain. I'll say 2-1 Napoli.
Yes, you love to see it.
This is what we predicted on Continental Club. Exactly, was this final? And I think
From
this
the last
scoreline.
Really?
Yes, we did. I think we did. I don't know whether we had Napoli winning it, but we had.
We might
Man
have had City winning it, actually.
And I think we also had Benfica making the semi-finals. We were actually pretty mystic on that Continental Club. Go check that out from a few months ago. But guys, thank you so much for getting involved with today's Champions League preview covering Chelsea versus Real Madrid, as Chelsea look to overturn that 2-0 first leg deficit, and obviously Napoli versus AC Milan tonight as well. Henry, thank you so much for joining. McCubbin too. Euro expert Alex Barker, always a pleasure. Enjoyed you creating a little bit of chaos with our bracket as well. Guys, thank you so much for getting involved with our Champions League preview. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Euro Football Daily and like this video. And why don't you get back involved after the games and see how wrong we were with our predictions. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you very soon. Goodbye.